Thursday, March 12 on Days of Our Lives looks like one of those Salem episodes where the danger builds quietly, and that can be even more unsettling than a sudden shock. A search grows more urgent. A hidden secret becomes harder to control. An uneasy alliance may change everything. And before the hour is over, one powerful conversation could push a family crisis into far more dangerous territory. So the real question for Thursday is this: when the truth starts slipping out, who will be ready for it, and who will be caught completely off guard? Let's begin with the search, because when someone starts asking for extra help in Salem, it usually means time is running short. Thursday's spoilers suggest that Steve turns to Rafe, and that tells us right away that this situation is no longer simple. This is not a case of one man following one lead and expecting everything to fall neatly into place. If Steve is pulling in another trusted ally, it likely means the situation has become more complicated, more dangerous, or more pressing than he first hoped. And that makes perfect sense. There has already been so much uncertainty surrounding who is really involved, who can be trusted, and whether the people on the outside are even chasing the right threat. That kind of doubt changes everything. It slows people down. It makes every clue feel less stable. And in a crisis, even a small delay can be costly. You can almost imagine the mood of a scene like this. A tense exchange, a quick explanation, a worried look that says more than words. Maybe something like, "I need another set of eyes on this, now." That kind of line tells viewers the search is not settling down. It is intensifying. And bringing Rafe in is important for another reason too. He represents experience, instinct, and a fresh perspective. Sometimes in a story like this, the breakthrough does not come from working harder. It comes from looking at the whole thing differently. If Steve has begun to suspect that the trail is more tangled than it appeared, then Rafe may be exactly the person who helps expose what has been missed. But of course, on Days of Our Lives, asking for help rarely means the danger is farther away. Usually, it means the danger is already closer than anyone realizes. So Thursday may be less about a calm investigation and more about that growing sense that the truth needs to be found quickly, before someone pays a much higher price. Now let's move to the lab storyline, because this is where Thursday starts to feel especially tense. Kayla reaches out to Kat, and on the surface that may sound like a simple beat. But in Salem, these kinds of calls for help are rarely casual. When Kayla reaches out, there is usually a real reason. It means something matters. It means the situation may be shifting. And it suggests that Kat is becoming much more important to the bigger picture. That is what makes this development so interesting. Kat has been orbiting dangerous knowledge for a while now. She has questions. She has instincts. And she has been moving closer and closer to the kind of truth that can change multiple storylines at once. So if Kayla is now reaching out to her, this may be the moment those threads begin pulling together. That alone raises the stakes. Because once a story starts connecting medical expertise, hidden experiments, private suspicions, and Demara secrets, it usually means something major is getting ready to surface. The walls around the mystery may still be standing, but they are no longer holding as firmly as before. And then we have the other major piece of this same puzzle, a shocking discovery. Rolf is the one who makes it, and that detail should immediately get viewers' attention. This is not a man who is easily rattled. He has been tied to some of Salem's wildest twists, impossible returns, and scientific nightmares. So if something shocks him, then whatever he uncovers is likely serious. Very serious. The beauty of this spoiler is that it does not spell everything out. That mystery makes it more effective. Is he finding a flaw in the project? Is something going wrong inside the lab? Has someone interfered? Or is the so-called miracle beginning to show a darker side? Whatever the answer is, the implication feels clear. The secret project may be far less stable than some people want to believe. That is where Thursday becomes especially suspenseful. Because a secret is dangerous enough on its own. But a secret that starts becoming unstable? That is when everything can spiral. A quiet scene in a lab can suddenly feel just as frightening as a public confrontation, because viewers know one discovery can change the entire meaning of what came before. You can picture the moment already. A flicker on a monitor, a change in expression, a stunned pause, and maybe a line spoken under the breath. No, that shouldn't be happening. That kind of moment is classic day's suspense. And if that is the tone Thursday delivers, then the lab storyline may be heading into much more dangerous territory than anyone expected. Then we come to what may be the most surprising twist of the episode: Stephanie and Jeremy joining forces. Now that is the kind of spoiler that immediately makes viewers stop and reconsider everything. Because if those two are suddenly working together, then the story is clearly shifting. The audience is being asked to look again at what they thought they knew. Maybe the situation is more layered than it first appeared. Maybe the wrong conclusions were drawn too quickly. Or maybe survival is forcing people into alliances they never expected to make. That is what gives this beat so much power. Stephanie is no longer just the frightened woman waiting to be rescued. She is thinking. She is adapting. She is making moves. And if she joins forces with Jeremy, then that tells us she sees him as useful, or at least less dangerous than the alternative. That is a major shift. And it creates the kind of suspense that works beautifully in soap storytelling. Not loud suspense, not flashy suspense, but tense, uneasy suspense. The kind built on guarded trust, quick decisions, and high emotional stakes. You can almost hear the scene playing out. A tense stare, a reluctant nod, a quiet line like, "I may not trust you, but I need your help." That is exactly the kind of moment that can change how an audience reads the whole story. Because now the questions deepen. If Jeremy can help Stephanie, then who is the real threat? If they are working toward the same goal, then how wrong have people been about the situation up to now? And if this alliance is genuine, how long can it hold before fear, suspicion, or danger tears it apart? That is what makes Thursday feel so strong. This story is no longer just about rescue. It is about shifting loyalties, new perspective, and that old Salem truth that sometimes the person you fear is not the person you should be watching most closely. Finally, we get to what may be Thursday's most emotionally charged confrontation. The moment when the plan is finally laid out. EJ tells Paulina exactly what he intends to do, and that is where this entire story may become much more dangerous. Up until now, Paulina has been reacting to shock, secrecy, and pressure. But once the full plan is spoken aloud, that changes. Now she is no longer dealing with fragments. She is dealing with intent. And that makes the moral stakes much sharper. Because hearing the full plan means she can no longer stand in the middle and pretend this is only confusion. Now she has to decide. That is why this scene could be so powerful. EJ will almost certainly present his vision with confidence. He may speak as if what he is doing is necessary. He may frame it as progress, as genius, even as something noble. That is his style. He knows how to wrap danger in polished words. But Paulina is exactly the kind of woman who can hear the polished version, and still recognize the human cost underneath it. That is where the real drama lives. This may not just be a conversation about facts. It may be a confrontation about conscience. EJ may want agreement. Paulina may hear manipulation. He may talk about miracles. She may see family pain. And when those two worldviews meet, the scene could become electric. A line like, "You should be thanking me," would feel very much in character. And just as easily, Paulina could fire back with something like, "You don't get to play God with my family and call it a gift." That kind of exchange would carry real weight. Because once this plan is out in the open, silence becomes harder. Neutrality becomes harder, and Paulina's next decision may matter more than ever. So overall, Thursday, March 12 looks like one of those Days of Our Lives episodes where every storyline tightens at once. A search becomes more urgent. A mystery in the lab grows more unstable. An unexpected alliance changes the shape of the kidnapping story. And one long-buried plan finally comes into the light. That is what makes Thursday feel so compelling. Not because Salem is already exploding, but because this is the kind of episode where the pressure becomes impossible to ignore. And once that happens, the fallout is usually not far behind.